The monitoring of pests and beneficials is the starting point for a lot of IPM strategies. Knowing when the pests are there is the first step. So if these pests are either flying in from outside the crop or they're emerging from overwintering stages, there's tools that can be used for certain pests that will accurately allow you to measure their growth and development. And so you can predict when the egg lays of the next generation are going to occur. And that makes it a lot easier instead of just relying on direct searching, for example, in the crop. If you've got pheromone traps, if you've got degree day models that will tell you, when things are likely to happen, then you can go and do the intensive monitoring at key points rather than trying to do it continuously. One of the basic elements of IPM is making decisions based on what's in your crop at any given time. And so it's not a calendar-based approach, it's based on looking and deciding what's there. And so the only way to do that is to have someone monitor the crop, whether that's the grower or someone else coming in to have a look. But most importantly, it's not just monitoring for pests, it's monitoring for beneficial species. And so we look for, are there enough beneficial species? If not, maybe it's time to apply an insecticide. And depending on what beneficials are there, depends on which insecticide you might choose. But it's all based on monitoring. When growers are using a conventional pesticide-only based approach, thresholds usually work very well because with a given number of pests, you can expect a certain amount of damage. But that starts to change when people use IPM because you have beneficial species in the mix, and so it's not so straightforward. If I can give an example, let's say someone's worried about aphids and the conventional threshold might be 10 aphids per leaf. So if you've got 10 aphids and no beneficials, then next week you've probably got 100 aphids or 1,000 aphids and a real problem. But in an IPM system, if you've got 10 aphids, 1 ladybird, 2 hoverflies and a parasitic wasp, then probably next week you have no aphids. So rigid thresholds are something that we usually don't use. We often get phone calls from farmers when insecticide resistance is the main problem. And so the spray program doesn't work, and often we get called too late because there are really good IPM compatible insecticides that are available that may kill some beneficials but not others, or they might be completely safe for a whole range of beneficials in a certain crop. But if they're mixed in a program with broad spectrum insecticides, then their selective value is just lost because the broad spectrum insecticides take out the beneficials, and so the selective insecticides are simply being used as standalone products. So we would like to see the selective products that are available used within an IPM program, not just to get better results immediately, but also to prolong the life of those IPM compatible products. So currently in Australia, control of diamondback moth has become much more difficult than it was a few years ago, and that's because the moth gets resistant to insecticides very quickly. I think it was the first agricultural pest to get resistant to DDT, and that was, I think, in the late 1940s. It's got a very short life cycle, and so multiple generations in the warmer parts of Australia means that resistance develops very quickly. And that resistance has now moved to other parts of Australia, and it's almost inevitable that the same sort of thing will happen in New Zealand. So the more you can do in New Zealand to reduce the risk of resistance developing, the better it will be. We see adoption of IPM and incorporating selective pesticides into a program like that as the best way to prolong the life of compatible chemicals. Pesticides have a range of impacts on beneficial species. So even the selective products that are available now, compared to the broad spectrum ones that would kill just about every beneficial, they vary in their impact on different species. So it's not that everything is safe to ladybirds or safe to parasitic wasps. Some will kill others, or might have a moderate impact on certain beneficials. So there's a range of toxicities and side effects. So there's databases that are available for people to look up, and these aren't absolute statements of what's safe or what's not safe, but it allows a relative comparison of the products that are available. So if you were concerned about predatory mites, say in strawberries, you could look up several databases and see, all right, out of the pesticide options that you've got for aphids, which ones are safe to predatory mites and which ones are not so safe. So they're guides, and of course those guides will just give you an indication, but if you use the same product 3 or 4 times, that's going to change the outcome. Almost all the guides, to my knowledge, are based on one application at the label rate. So if you use a higher rate or more applications, those things change.